There is a particular kind of woman who senses the shift before it ever becomes obvious. A tightening in the air, a softening of tone, the faint stutter in a man's attention, like a candle flickering before it goes out. Most women ignore it. They tell themselves he's tired, he's stressed, he's overwhelmed by work, the economy, or whatever excuse seems least humiliating. But if you've lived long enough, if you've watched men long enough, if you've dissected the strange, slippery creature that is the male psyche, you know the truth. There is a world of difference between a man who is genuinely busy and a man who is deliberately avoiding you. And this difference is the battlefield, where countless women lose their dignity. Let's begin with a hook sharp enough to draw blood. If you misread a man's distance, you will play the wrong role, either chasing a ghost or insulting a man who actually values you. Either way, you lose. The only thing worse than a woman blindly waiting for a man who is avoiding her is the woman who accuses a truly ambitious man of disinterest simply because he is not glued to his phone like an adolescent. Both errors reveal the same dangerous flaw: emotional illiteracy. The inability to read the subtle coded behaviors men use when navigating desire, distraction, and detachment. A man who is busy behaves like a man constrained by his obligations. A man who is avoiding you behaves like a man escaping his obligations. One is pulled by external forces. The other is repelled by you. The distinction is subtle, but once you see it, it is unmistakable. And once you understand it, you stop humiliating yourself in the arena of misplaced assumptions. The modern world has created a generation of simps who panic the moment a woman takes more than 5 minutes to reply. So men have learned to weaponize being busy as an all-purpose shield. Ironically, the only men who are truly busy rarely bother using the excuse. They don't announce their workload like children seeking gold stars for effort. They simply disappear for a moment, handle what must be handled, and return with a presence that still carries the imprint of desire. You can feel it. Their energy comes back to you with intention. Their time might be divided, but their attention is not diluted. A man who is avoiding you, on the other hand, becomes slippery. He stretches time like taffy. His replies become delayed, not because he's immersed in the world, but because he's trying to manage your expectations downward. He is conditioning you to want less from him. He's shrinking the emotional container of the relationship without ever saying a word. That is avoidance. That is retreat. That is the quiet, cowardly art form of the man who doesn't want the confrontation of leaving, but doesn't want the burden of staying. If this makes you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort has always been the starting point of clarity. Now, to ground this in something other than cold observation, consider a study from the University of Kansas, where researchers found that individuals who are emotionally invested respond more quickly and consistently to their partner, even during periods of stress. Emotional withdrawal correlated with increased response time and decreased warmth in communication. Classic avoidance behavior hiding behind logistical excuses. When a man is busy, his communication rhythm remains stable, even if the intervals expand. When a man is avoiding you, the rhythm dies. Silence replaces consistency. Vagueness replaces detail. Obligations replace enthusiasm. Busy men return. Avoidant men fade. Most women never learn to read this. They feel distance and assume responsibility for it, as if their existence caused his retreat. This is what separates the naive from the powerful. There is nothing more strategically lethal than a woman who can scan a man's behavior and see his intent without needing a single confession. Men rarely confess anything voluntarily. They confess through shifts in tone, engagement, and emotional accessibility. They confess through the absence of enthusiasm. They confess by becoming ghosts while still pretending to be flesh. A man who is busy remains tethered to you, even weakly. A man who is avoiding you detaches strand by strand, hoping you won't notice until the severance is complete. And here is where women sabotage themselves. They react to avoidance with pursuit. They compensate for his retreat by offering more warmth, more presence, more attention, as if generosity could bribe a man back into desire. You cannot sweeten your way out of indifference. You cannot nurture your way out of avoidance. And you certainly cannot heal a wound that is inflicted by his lack of enthusiasm, not his lack of time. When a man is busy, he kills the distance the moment he has a free breath. When a man is avoiding you, he feeds the distance like a starving animal. He expands it. He stretches it. He needs it to justify the emotional exit he is too weak to name. Some of you listening think you're the exception. You believe your connection is special, that he's just overwhelmed, that once things calm down, he will return to the man he was. Let me break something gently, but brutally. Men who want you do not leave you in emotional limbo. Men who want you do not become philosophers of silence and poets of vagueness. Men who want you do not treat you like a suggestion. A man who wants you makes space. A man avoiding you makes excuses. The women I admire, the ones who understand this game rather than being devoured by it, respond to avoidance with distance of their own. They do not punish him. They do not interrogate him. They do not audition for continued relevance. They simply mirror what is given. And the moment they mirror his retreat, the truth reveals itself. If he is truly busy, he will correct the imbalance. If he is avoiding you, he will continue drifting until he disappears or grows brave enough to sever the tie outright. Either outcome is power, because clarity is power. You're not here to become another woman tormented by ambiguity. You're here to become the woman who knows how to read the signs before the heartbreak, before the humiliation, before the slow psychological erosion that comes from loving a man who is already detached. And for those who want to master this at a deeper level, my landing page is finished. The link will be in the description and pinned comment. Go there, get the free PDF, watch the free video, and subscribe to the newsletter. If you're truly serious about understanding male psychology in its raw, unsanitized form, that's where the real work begins. And for those who want the nuclear-level transformation, I offer one-on-one coaching. It's pinned in the comments. Women who work with me don't just learn the game. They become the kind of women men orbit for years. The kind men remember long after they've moved on. The kind men fear losing. If you want that, coaching is where it happens. There's another layer to all of this that most people are too naive or too sentimental to confront. Men who are busy still maintain a thread of emotional tension with the woman they want. Even if their schedule devours them, even if life is chewing them at both ends, they will not relinquish that tension. It is the one thing they protect because it keeps the connection alive. A man who is genuinely busy and genuinely interested will treat you like a source of energy, not a drain. His messages may be brief, but they pulse with intent. His presence may be inconsistent, but when he appears fully. His desire doesn't dissolve because of his obligations. It intensifies. You become the reprieve from his war, not collateral damage. Contrast that with the man who is avoiding you. His silence is not exhaustion, it's evasion. His distance is not logistical, it's strategic cowardice. He doesn't want to confront the discomfort of telling you he's losing interest, so he delays the inevitable, hoping you will take the hint and remove yourself. This is how weak men exit relationships. They don't leave, they erode. They don't walk out, they fade out. They don't choose departure, they hope to be dismissed. And the worst part? Many women oblige them. They sense him drifting, and instead of stepping back, they step forward. Instead of becoming more selective, they become more accommodating. Instead of re-evaluating his behavior, they rationalize it. They explain it away with fantasies of workload, emotional overwhelm, or temporary stress, as if men only avoid women when their calendars are full. This is how women get played without ever realizing they were in the game. What you must understand, what you must carve into your consciousness so deeply it becomes instinct, is that men rarely behave accidentally. Their inconsistencies are not random. Their shifts are not spontaneous. A man's distance is almost always deliberate, even if he hasn't consciously articulated it to himself. Avoidance is a strategy born of discomfort, fear, or disinterest. Busy is a circumstance. Avoidance is a decision. And the man who avoids you becomes predictable in his own pathetic little way. He will text just enough to keep the door from closing, but never enough to deepen the connection. He will respond, but without substance. His words become administrative. He updates you, but he doesn't engage you. He keeps you in a limbo that is polite enough to avoid guilt, but distant enough to maintain his retreat. It's the behavior of a politician trying to appease a crowd he secretly resents. A busy man, on the other hand, behaves like someone managing limited resources, time, energy, attention, but still valuing the return on investment. He may disappear for hours, but he reappears with purpose. He may cancel plans, but he reschedules with intent. He may not always have the capacity to be romantic, but he has the consistency to remain present. Presence, not frequency, is the marker of interest. Avoidance, however, is marked by the absence of presence, even when communication occurs. A man can text you daily and still be avoiding you. A man can say, "We should hang out soon," and still have no intention of seeing you. A man can keep you in his orbit without ever planning to land. And women fall for it because they mistake crumbs for effort. Women who understand the game do not make this mistake. They do not allow a man's ambiguous behavior to cloud their perception. They observe. They detach. They calibrate. They withhold their emotional investment until his actions prove worthy of it. They do not chase clarity from a man who has already shown he cannot provide it. They do not beg for attention from someone rationing it. They do not extend loyalty to someone withdrawing theirs. These women have learned the art of psychological self-preservation, the weapon that separates those who thrive from those who suffer. And here's the subtle twist that men never expect. When a woman stops chasing a man who is avoiding her, she ruptures his illusion of control. He assumed she would hold on. He assumed she would question, plead, or analyze him into confession. When she does none of that, when she withdraws with elegance, it destabilizes him. Suddenly, he must confront the reality he hoped to sidestep, that she was never as dependent as he imagined. Weak men crumble under that realization. Stronger men rethink their exit. Some even return, confused by the loss of a woman they thought they had already escaped. A surprising percentage of male avoidance is not genuine disinterest, but emotional laziness. They want the comfort of a woman without the responsibility of investment. When she withdraws, the comfort evaporates, and they panic. But by then, it's usually too late. Once a woman sees the difference between busy and avoidance, she cannot unsee it. Once she recognizes the pattern, she cannot return to blindness. Once she understands his behavior was not the result of workload, but the result of apathy, she begins the quiet process of rewriting her identity. This transformation is subtle, but irreversible. She becomes a woman who no longer needs closure because she has developed discernment. She no longer needs reassurance because she has mastered emotional observation. She no longer clings to men who give the bare minimum because she finally sees the cost of self-deception. Men feel this shift. They sense when a woman has sharpened her psychological weapons. They feel the lack of desperation. They feel the absence of fear. And they react in one of two ways. They rise to match her, or they retreat entirely. Either outcome is a victory for her, because clarity always serves the woman who seeks power rather than validation. This entire subject, by the way, is one of the reasons I created the feminine game. Not as a collection of platitudes or soft, sentimental nonsense, but as a course for women who want to see the world as it is, not as their romantic fantasies paint it. The landing page is finished. I'll be adding it to the description and pinning it in the comments. Go there. Read the free PDF. Watch the video. Subscribe to the newsletter. If you want to stop being played by ambiguity, you need strategy. Real strategy. And if you want the deepest transformation, the kind that only happens when someone dissects your patterns, your blind spots, and your psychological vulnerabilities with surgical precision, that's what one-on-one coaching's for. Women who work with me one-on-one are not the women who get breadcrumbed. They are not the women who fall into traps. They are not the women who confuse avoidance with busyness. They become the women men fear losing, and the women who don't fear losing any man. But let's drag this back to the real battlefield. The difference between a man who is genuinely busy and a man who is blatantly avoiding you. Because underneath all the psychology, the humor, the strategic dissection of male instinct, the truth is far simpler than most people want to admit. A man who is busy does not feel entitled to your patience. A man who is avoiding you depends on it. The busy man apologizes, not theatrically, not with flowers and sonnets like a cheap sitcom husband, but with effort. Effort is his apology. When his workload loosens, he comes back with intention. He reconnects. He pulls you close. Again. Because desire interrupted is still desire. But the man who avoids you, his apologies are camouflage. He is apologizing for the sake of performance, not restoration. He is not trying to reconnect. He is trying to neutralize your suspicion. Avoidance is not neglect. It is strategy. A man doesn't avoid a woman he wants. He avoids discomfort, confrontation, and responsibility. So he avoids you because he cannot avoid the truth inside himself. He doesn't care enough. And most women would rather swallow broken glass than accept that. Here's the part most never understand. A man who avoids you wants you to think he is busy. He wants his absence to look productive, not cowardly. He wants to seem overwhelmed, not disinterested. Men will cloak their exit in professionalism because it makes them feel like honorable deserters, still abandoning the battlefield, just with better PR. And if you confront him, he will say, "I'm just going through a lot right now." The universal slogan of male indifference. Yet research consistently shows something beautifully brutal. When people are emotionally invested, they prioritize connection, even under stress. A study from Florida State University found that individuals in relationships they valued communicated more frequently during periods of pressure, not less. Stress didn't reduce contact, it heightened it. Why? Because emotional bonds function as relief, not burden. Busy men seek the women they want. Avoidant men hide from the women they no longer desire. And the tragedy is that most women misinterpret avoidance as busyness because it protects their ego. Accepting that a man is avoiding you requires confronting your value in his mind, and that is far more painful than believing he's drowning in responsibilities. Women will create entire fictional narratives to avoid facing the simplest, coldest truth. He is not choosing you. But the women who understand the game, truly understand it, do not fear this truth. They treat avoidance as clarity. They treat distance as data. They treat his inconsistency not as an emotional wound, but as proof that his chapter is closing and another is available. And this brings us to the women I respect. Women who don't sit around wondering. Women who don't spiral. Women who don't cling. Women who don't negotiate with ambiguity. When a man becomes inconsistent, slow, distant, vague, when his messages feel like leftovers scraped from the bottom of a cold pan, they do the most powerful thing a woman can do. They withdraw without announcement. Not in a dramatic, "I'm done," flailing arms performance. No, they simply vanish from the emotional stage. They turn their energy inward. They recenter. They recalibrate. They return to themselves. And men feel that shift, like a sudden drop in temperature. He thought she would chase. He thought she would press. He thought she would beg for clarity. When she does none of that, his illusion of dominance collapses. Women who can read the difference between busy and avoidance become immune to manipulation. They stop giving men the comfort of half investment while demanding full attention. They stop mistaking crumbs for meals. They stop worshiping inconsistency as if it were mystery. They see the game for what it is. And here's the poetic justice. Once you stop tolerating avoidance, busy men will adore you, and avoidant men will fear you. Busy men respect boundaries. They live in a world of efficiency and value. Avoidant men, however, cannot survive in an environment of self-respect. They rely on emotional ambiguity. They feed on your patience. They thrive in the fog. So when the fog lifts, they retreat into the shadows, like creatures who were never meant for daylight. By now, you should understand the difference between a man whose life is full and a man whose interest is empty. One makes time because he wants to. The other withholds time because he doesn't. One returns with energy. The other returns with excuses. One is constrained by life. The other is constrained by disinterest. And if any part of you is still asking, "But what if?" then let me be the villain who gives you the truth without a sugarcoating. If a man cares, you will not need to decode him. If a man is avoiding you, you will always feel confused. Confusion is not a symptom of love. It is the symptom of avoidance. There's a reason I created my full landing page, The Feminine Game, and why I tell you, yes, you specifically, to go there the moment you're done with this video. Everything I've said so far? It's just the surface. The real strategies, the psychological breakdowns, the patterns men follow like predictable animals. You get that in the free PDF, in the free video, and in the newsletter you should subscribe to immediately, if you have even a shred of interest in understanding the male mind, instead of being victim to it. And if you want the deepest transformation, the one that actually rewires your instincts, instead of just entertaining you for 10 minutes, that's what my one-on-one coaching is for. It's pinned in the comments. Women who enter coaching with me don't just attract better men, they purge the weakness that made them entertaining playgrounds for avoidant ones. They stop falling for the emotionally unavailable. They stop chasing men who breadcrumb them. They stop confusing avoidance with ambition. They stop accepting the bare minimum. Coaching is where women go to become strategically untouchable. I teach you the psychology behind the behavior. I show you your blind spots. I expose the patterns you inherited, the habits you repeat, the wounds you defend. And when we finish, you walk out with a level of discernment that makes you immune to the nonsense that used to devastate you. And for those ready to transform permanently, pre-order The Feminine Game. That course is the next evolution of female strategy. It's the blueprint for becoming the kind of woman men brag about, chase endlessly, and fear losing. The link will be pinned and in the description. Do not sleep on it. If you got value from this video, subscribe. I don't say that lightly. If this kind of psychological precision, dark humor, and brutal clarity helps you, then hit the button, because there's far more coming. And here's your question for the comments. Answer it boldly. Have you ever mistaken a man's avoidance for being busy, and what finally revealed the truth? I'll see you there.